good afternoon, or whatever time you are on right now. Uh, this is a live Q&A, or actually a live demo. We'll have a Q&A afterwards for the Fate character sheet and other features to play Fate on Roll20 as part of Roll20 Con. I'm delighted to meet you. I'm Sophie Lagacé. I am the Fate line developer for Evil Hat Productions, and I also have created a good number of Fate modules for on behalf of Evil Hat Production for play on Roll20. This is Roll20 Con, so important an announcement if you haven't seen it yet. We ask if you are able to donate to Code 2040, which is an excellent nonprofit that is trying to promote diversity and disadvantaged individuals into tech jobs for the future. So it's helping uplift our youngest generations. And you will see links for that and other pertinent things in the chat window. I have Schotten Nittner with me, who is like the jack of all trade and project director at Evil Hat, and also the one of the key people behind the actual play Twitch. And he will be dropping all those links in the chat window for you. So what I'm going to do today is show you from creating a Fate game on Roll20 from scratch. And then I'm going to walk you through some of the features of the character sheet, some of all the tricks and amazing things it can do. There's actually quite a bit of information. It's surprising just for that. I should fill the hour and perhaps more, but fear not. We have a series of blog posts that break it down on the Evil Hat site. I think that we have now seven installments just for how the character sheet works, and a few more for other Roll20 features you can use to your advantage in Fate and other games we publish. And the vast majority of what I'm going to show you is completely free. And then towards the end, I'm going to show you some of the cool things you can have in our modules. But again, we have taken pains to make sure that what we create on Roll20, once you've bought the module, it's all yours, even if you don't have a paid membership. We do encourage you, if you can, if you are interested, especially for GMs. It's great to have a paid membership on Roll20 and access some of their advanced features. There are some I just love to bits, but it's a hard year. So if you can't, if you have no budget for this, you get a ton of stuff for free anyway. So I'm going to start. I'm going to, right now you're seeing a tab of sample game I've set up. For the Q&A we will have in just under an hour now, where people who have signed up can drop in and try those features firsthand and ask questions on how do I do this? Why is this there? And we will keep the Zoom call going, the Zoom call that is behind this Twitch stream. And I'll drop the link. So if you are interested, even if you don't have a spot to try it hands-on, you can still listen in if you are interested, and you will see what I see on my desktop. But for now, what I'm going to do is go open another tab and recreate a game for Fate from scratch, and we'll walk you through the steps of doing that. So this is the dashboard for the Evil Hat account, and it looks very much like anybody's own account. At the top here, you will have buttons to do a number of things, and of course the most important, and that's why it's got its own color, is create a new game. So I'm going to set it up all from scratch. So I will call it Saturday Morning Fate. It's not morning, it's morning somewhere, right? It's morning in Alaska. Whoops, and I can't type. I do love to give tags to my games, especially because, as you might guess, on Roll20, we have a lot of them. But even on my personal account, I have tons of games. So I like to give them a few tags so I can find them again later on. And I will call this one Roll20 Con. I am not going to mark it as an event for Roll20 Con because I don't necessarily want anybody to jump in right now. And this is how you create a blank game that has nothing attached to it, but I'm going to go select my character sheet. The one you want is sheets by publisher. Like you can search on a name, and a lot of fans have made their own character sheets. Roll20, when before we were able to create our own, had made one for Evil Hat, but now we got our own this year because of everybody's attention to turning to online play. We've got our very own Fred Hicks created an extremely nifty character sheet. And this is the basics of what it looks like. I will show you in a moment how to customize it, but when you start a game, that's what it looks like. I'm ready, create my game. And I could launch it right now. Hey, I'm going to be fancy. I'm going to give it a little banner, Roll20 Con. I've got my assets in here. Is that this one? No, that's the backdrop. Maybe I didn't pick one. I'll use the backdrop. That's good enough. And we can always change it later. Just, I'm very visually oriented, so I like to distinguish my games visually. And so I could decide, I can enter a description here if I have, it's a weekly game, I want my players to find it. So I would call it, here it's my demo Fate game. You probably hear my loud keyboard clicking away. I apologize for that. I didn't think of that in advance. It's I don't have a quiet keyboard to switch it on. Here you have game add-ons. We'll get back to that later, but I just want to attract your attention as we are starting a whole new game. You have assets you have either purchased or that are free with some levels of membership. And the very last one I have, it's our very own deck of fate. So if I want to add this to a game, I would click here. We will do that later. We can do it afterwards. We can always go back and add more add-ons to our game, map packs and so forth. Right now, before I start it, I'm going to go finish tweaking the settings. These are not available when you first start it. You have to add them afterwards. Allow public access to this game, yes or no. Typically, my own game as a GM are private, but maybe you want a demo for a larger group. Game background image, that's more, it's a page background. It'll show to the edges. It's not something I use very often. Allow players to import their own characters, yes or no. I typically say yes, but maybe you want them to absolutely make characters at the table, and so that they can all be linked PC to PC, for example. Game default setting. I actually I'm fussy. I like to have a certain default page ratio when you create screens or pages or maps. That people give them different name, but they're called pages in the Roll20 nomenclature. That default is a square page of 25 squares by 25 squares, and their squares have 70 pixels per inch or per squares, that is. I like to have mine. I used to, we at Evil Hat have found that it's for our modules, it's pretty handy to use a standard screen resolution. 1920 by 1880 is a lot of modern monitors default size. Um, I'll show you in a minute. It also displays pretty well when you've got all your toolbars set up. Background is a color. I can give my pages a default color. I'm happy with white. I am not going to change the default they're set for D&D because it's so over um, extremely present. Um, and I could change the grid color. I could make it some other color. Pale gray is fine with me. But these are all things that are nice to play with if you have a lot of maps. I do play with those on individual pages, but those are for set up for the default. I'm not going to touch fog of war of all these things, but I will attract your attention to those right-hand defaults. They are for tokens. Um, you can set by default where if you have health bars, for example, that show that your character's damage as you go, or if they have an aura or emit lights or things like that. For certain games, it's nice to have them set for as specific defaults because you're going to have a lot of them. I use them in some of my games, but the thing I always check for every game, I like everybody to be able to set and see the names on their individual character tokens, and I like everybody to be able to see that information, unless there's a particular reason not to. Um, Otherwise, we get the player set them, and the next player says, "I can't see what you just put in." So this is where these things happen. I'm going to save them. And you have to save blocks of options separately. So I have to save my game default before I can go save my character sheet template. So here's the cool things. You can customize your fate sheet quite a bit. There's a lot of default games that have already been pre-built. You can just click those and it'll give you the fate core default abilities, conditions, and all those settings. But we have some fate is a toolkit. It's a toolbox. It's a series of little mechanics that work well together, but that you can choose to use or not, or to use in certain ways or not. So all these games, a lot of them are like, those are Fate Worlds. There's some standalone games in there. The superheroes, sort of Star Wars / Battlestar Galactica space pilots. You got your Shadow of the Century 1980s pulp. The Secrets of Cats, where you play magical cats that kick butt. Nyen Mapu, where you play indigenous spirits that are trying to adapt to the modern world and do good. You get all the swashbuckling pulp space adventure. So you got all these ready-made games that it may be all you need, but you can also customize and set it up in every way the way you want. The other thing you can customize is the color, and that setting, the color theme, it works well with all of the presets. If you choose a preset, you can still choose its color. And then, as it says, you have some indications in the small text here. You get some directions. Everything else below here, I can choose to show or not every single block of the sheet, the modes, the roles. You can see them in the little thumbnail here. I can adjust all of those, and then if I want to do that, I will say custom build with the options below. For now, I'm just going to use Fate Condensed because it is our most recent release, and we're very proud of it. Hey, if you see me on camera, Here's my, it arrived just a few days ago. It'll be in your stores in a few more days. I was super proud of it. It's a thin little book that has all the rules you need to play a Fate or to write a Fate game. It's excerpted, and we built it for, or rebuilt it for our Fate of Cthulhu. So I'm going to use the Evil Hat colors. I think they're very cool, very pretty. Actually, no, I'm going to go for core blue. We're going to go very classic. And I'm going to save changes. And I'll show you later why I might want to change some of those other things here. So now I've set up my game. I can go back and start setting up inside. So I will launch it. So you'll see a blank page by default. I like to make myself comfortable whenever I start. So I have my routine. Having made a lot of these, little things. I click on that 100% to collapse the little zoom bar, because I don't like the zoom bar. I don't have good enough dexterity. I prefer to use the plus and minuses. I go to the settings tab, the rightmost one, and I immediately turn off the chat deck. I don't want to share audio or video, not only because I don't want interference with this call, but because in general, I tend to use, most often it's Discord actually, but Zoom works well, Google Hangouts, I've used Skype, all of those, just because particularly Discord lets you adjust the sound level individually for players. I really like that. And because it's integrated with some of our other platforms where we share during the week about our game. And okay, I like to check that my settings are all right. And then I'm going to go and create my start page. I've set up, so here is the page setting. You can see they have I guess I did not save my dimensions because I was talking. I like the same dimensions I've described before. And I am going to move to the map and background layer. I can do this either by clicking in the toolbar here, or I can do Control M, and you see the icons change and indicates that I am in the map background level. And I've made myself a little, we just saw it a moment ago. We can see what I was playing last night. Here's my evil hat. Thought I had opened my tabs. I've got this elaborate file system for my games, and here's my Roll20 con. And I'm going to put in the backdrop I had prepared according to those exact dimensions because I'm fussy. Right now you can see the grid. I've got the grid enabled. And what its usefulness is, it makes it easy to line up graphics exactly, but you can also ignore the snap to grid if you want. There are hotkeys to do that. So I'm adjusting my page and whoop, it snapped in the corner. And if I go check the edges, now it matches exactly. It looks nice the way I like it. And I am going to drop, I'm going to keep my grid so things line up, but I'm going to drop the grid opacity so that it's a very pale little grid, just barely visible. In fact, on the Zoom call, you may not see it. I see it as a very, very pale lines. So that's for my map level. I'm going to go back to the objects and tokens, which was where most of the action happens, and it's the only layers that the players have direct access to. I can do that by clicking here, or I can do Control O for objects, and you can see Control O took it to the correct layer. And on that, I'm going to add, where did I put my Fate bookmark? I may have to open another tab here. Geez. Did I mention I have an elaborate filing system for my games? There's my play 8. Oh, actually, I can show you a better spot. I forgot to introduce you to the art library, which is for, it's only visible in, to the, let me rephrase. The art library is visible for everybody has one, but my art library is only visible to me. When I go to that tab, I see my assets, you will see your assets in your tab, but you can organize it in similar ways. Again, filing system, I've got my Fate assets here, and what I'm going to drop is the Fate bookmark. It was published as a bookmark, and you can still find it in a lot of gaming stores. And now I will adjust it to something that is nicely visible. Whoops, come on, give me my width. A little more. And I drop it in every Fate game because it's handy for the players. They have the Fate ladder, the actions, and just the very basics of the rules. So this is how I configure a desktop to be comfortable. And I was mentioning those dimensions once we're set up. I bring it to 80%. For most newer monitors, I say newer because until recently I had an antique, but it fits pretty well in the window. You see almost the entire image here. It serves as a good size for a playmat, even when you have your side panel open. So now we're going to start creating characters and handouts, and we are going to walk through the Fate character sheet. So I'm going to create a random character, random because there's an engine on Roll20 that gives characters random names, but we'll call it Fate, the Fate character. Because I want to, right now I would want everybody to see it at my table. For example, if I'm assigning player characters to people, I will assign it to be not only viewed, but also controlled and edited by everybody at the table for the moment. And I have, so my first tab here, when I edit, I can put the character details, I can put a portrait, I can, and their background. Now I'm going to go look at the character sheet. So I took the Fate condensed default. So this is what shows up. Fate condensed by default. This is the skill list. It has 5 aspect types. Character will have a high concept, trouble, relationship, and a couple of free aspects. The other aspects here. The damage will be absorbed as stress. So we have default length of stress bars, and we have some consequences, mild, moderate, and severe. Situation aspects that I can add in play that will come and go. And I have a spot to add stunts for characters and notes. So if you're familiar with Fate, and particularly Fate Condensed, but just Fate in general, those will look at least familiar. Let's go through the blocks one by one so we see what we're talking about. What I'm going to do is turn them all off and reopen them one by one so that we can look at them without being distracted by the things we're not using currently. So here's a blank character sheet. All it has is a name and a place to indicate your pronouns if you want. And we're going to start with what is fundamental to Fate, the aspects. I can't think of a Fate game that wouldn't have aspects. That's the first building block, and it's a fictional bit about your character that is true. That is, it may be true in different levels. It may be true in relative form or absolute form, depending on your understanding in the game, but they are true. So your high concept, Fae is a, let's see, last remaining elf in a modern world. Her trouble, what is Faye's trouble? Fading fast. Relationship, Clarissa understands me. And we'll figure out in play. It maybe Clarissa is another player character. Maybe she's an NPC. And we have space to add a couple of aspects. I don't know yet what other aspects Faye will have. So I'm going to call it good, close for editing. And right now, all that's left in view when I stopped editing is what those aspects are. What type they are, that's the type indicated here. And for each of those, I don't know if it's too faint to see. When I hover with the cursor, it then gets darker. You can share these in the chat window. So for example, if you want to, you're introducing your character and what people need to know about them, that is true and that you can send all of your aspects at once. Alternately, maybe I just want to send one because I'm rolling. So I'm saying I'm going to spend a fate point to use my aspect here. And the aspect that applies is my relationship aspect. I will reopen for editing because maybe I have an idea for what the next aspect will be. I got it in play, and I have a magical cat companion. And you can see when I'm editing aspects here that there are, I'm trying to bring it further up so you can see better. There are also fields here that are unused. Flags are something, are items that will show next to the type of aspect. They're used in some games to represent something specific about a category of aspect. For example, in Fate of Cthulhu, some of your aspects may become corrupted as you tinker with elder gods, science, and magic. So maybe that magical cat companion is kind of dodgy. And so I will say that's sad, but it's a corrupted aspect. Or in some other game, it might be arcane. There are aspects that are mundane, but a few are arcane, and that's going to mean something special. Maybe arcane is better for our cat. It's an arcane aspect. And I can see it updates here. You see it here in the description. When I say here, I don't know if you see my pointer, but it's in the description now, it appears in parentheses. The other thing you can see under aspects is you can have free invokes. Uh, Magical aspects are an excellent example. Corruption aspects could be used that way too. Sometimes, because an aspect is something that's got a little more mechanical oomph, maybe you can evoke it twice for free per episode. So I'm going to use it this way here, and I'm going to close editing so we can look at it, and it looks clean. So now here we go. This particular aspect that falls in the arcane category. I may be limited in the number I have, for example. So that's why I want to track them. And I've just given it a special mechanical oomph twice per episode now, or perhaps per adventure. I can use it for free. And when I use it, I can mark the box. And when they're both marked, then I have to pay fate point from now on to use those aspects. So that's the gist for aspect. There's a few more tricks, but I'll get back to them later. Or if I don't have time, you'll see them in the articles we posted that are linked on the Evil Hat Production website. The second portion of the character sheet that is almost universal, you usually have skills. And in some variants, they may have other name. For example, in Fate Accelerated, it's the same mechanic, but we call them approaches, just to clarify, what they do for a living. In some other games, like I think the Fate of Freeport, they may be attributes or abilities, but it's the same thing. It's a skill. Because we chose the default of the Fate condensed profile, we have that list. We can add or remove. We could also have created our own list, and we go step by step in our articles showing you how to do that. Each they start at 0. That's the default value for a skill you don't have any improvements in core. It's called mediocre, but I could decide that I have 3 points in athletics. And now I can see my athletics at the top of the list is now labeled as good. This is the compact list style. That means that the list is in alphabetical order, and you look for your skills that way. You're going to find them alphabetically. I tend to prefer the group by rating. I like to see at a glance what I'm best at and what I'm worst at. Maybe I have 1 point in will and 1 point in stealth. And maybe I'm very oblivious. Maybe, whoops, -2 is a little much, I think. But, my character is just not that good at noticing and takes a penalty whenever she uses it. So once I'm happy with my skills, and right now I haven't spent enough points, but that's okay. I can close editing. And now this is what the group by rating looks like. You can see they're alphabetically by level. So I can zoom in on the skills that I am most potent with. And when these things are the list of skills is closed from editing, when it's in display mode, you can now click on the button that represents that skill. And if I go to the chat window here, you can see that Faye just rolled her academics. She got a total of 2, fair. And if I hover my cursor, I'm not sure you can see it. You may have to try it and hover a cursor over your number, but it tells me, Roll20 tells me what I rolled. Rolling 4 fate dice, +3 for academics, +0 for I don't have any other modifiers applied. gives me a total, I rolled a blank, minus, minus, plus. So the roll itself has a total of -1, plus my +3 academics, total of 2. So I have all this information. I can see what went wrong since I'm below average here. Another feature that's related to skills is there are some that are used only in some games, like Atomic Robo. So that particular type of game has the use of roles, like in Shadow of the Century has roles, or modes like Atomic Robo, which I just mentioned. And those are groups that skills belong to. They're sorted in groups. Modes typically are used by saying you have 3 modes. You rate one at +3, one at +2, and one at +1. And so let's say I do go with Atomic Robo. I am going to make an intrigue character. And right now I'm just going to decide what my modes are, and then I'll assign them some values. So my second mode, whoops, is, sorry. You can see what the modify button is for. I can use it to delete things or not. There are little idiosyncrasies. What I need to do is add a pre-made mode. Not I can make them manually. So what what I did is I added a blank by mistake. I did that twice because I'm very clever. And you can see what you can do is you can give it a name. Like, for example, she might have a custom mode and fairy, and I would say what skills, they have to be spelled exactly like in the list here, but let's say that it gives me will, and let's see, I'm going to give it a few skills. It gives me deceive, and let's say stealth. I'm trying to think what fairies are good at. So now it appears in my list. It's a brand new mode that I created, and plus the ready-made mode of intrigue I had selected. And now I'm going to add banter, because I think that I have the gift of gab as well, or at least my character does. That's something. I haven't even given them ratings yet. I haven't decided which one I'm best at. I think I'm going to say I'm best at fairy. I have +3. And I am pretty good at banter, and intrigue I dabble in. So I gave my 3, 2, 1. And it tells me I'm automatically focused on some skills. That is, they appear in more than one mode. So here we go. They are magically counted for me. And I am specialized. That is, I have one skill that appears in all 3 of my modes. I didn't plan for this, but this is what happens. So it gets a +2, and that's the maximum you can get that way. My apologies. So this is how modes work with skills. And then when you look at the skills, you can see that it adjusted my skill value. Now I'm a super, but deceiving, at stealth and at will. This is a character that was made off the cuff, so it doesn't follow any rules. So it's got some kind of weird stats. Let's turn off the modes for, well, no, let's leave them on, doesn't matter. Let's look at stunts, another very commonly used item. And stunts, you can add as blank. I give them a name. Let's call it quick escape. Stunts can give you a one-time special benefit. Whatever the stunt does, you put it in the description and it will appear under. And you can also make them rollable because some types of stunts give you a bonus to certain skill actions. So I'm going to say that this gives me a +2 bonus to the skill stealth under narrow conditions. Um, and I will describe it as +2 to stealth when escaping alone from a risky situation when attention is on one of my companions. So I'm good at using my companions as distractions and leaving them in the hot water all by themselves. So I can have typically fake characters can have 2 or 3 of the stunts to begin with for free. And stunts are related to 2 other easy and fate concepts. To your fate points and your refresh. By default, the value is you start with a refresh of 3, which it tells you the minimum number of fate points you start an episode with. And in most games, you can also spend refresh to buy additional stunts over your basic allotment of 2 or 3. So I don't have to change anything here. There, I should give her her pronouns. I think I do not have time to go into some of the more advanced concepts like the swappable skill sets, the roles versus the modes, the rollable aspects, but they are explained in detail on our blog. I will go through stress because it's very commonly used. By default, I use the fate condensed values. So in fate condensed, you start with 3 stress boxes that absorb 1 point each. And depending on your willpower and your physique, you may get more. So with a will of 5 is superb. I actually have 6 mental stress points. And I didn't do anything to my physique, so I stick with my 3 points. And I can close my stress boxes. You saw that there were places for notes. So if there's something special about your stress tracks, you can create new stress tracks that are not physical or mental. For example, they could be social. They could be, you could use it to track magic points or mana points if you were using those in a particular magic system for your characters. And I will add consequences, which are the other common way that fate condensed addresses overflow stress. So in a scene, I can absorb some stress with my stress tracks, but if it goes over that, I take a consequence that will stick with me for a while. And the default for that, as in Fate Core and as in Fate Accelerated, is to have 1 mild, 1 moderate, and 1 severe, absorbing respectively 2, 4, and 6 points of stress. So if I have to take this much, I absorb it with consequences. I would mark the box. I would edit to this, probably to describe what that severe consequence is, or that moderate consequence is, whatever. And because I have a superb will, my character would actually have 1 more. This per the rules. I will call it mild mental because it applies only to mental stress. And I'm adding it here, and I'm going to drag it just because I like them to be in sequence of severity. Uh, so that's the Roll20 artifact. To have it display in the list properly, I need to edit it to force it to refresh. It's it's surprising at first when you think, oh, I've moved it. Why isn't it moving? But it's very easily taken care of. So there we go. Now I have my extra mild consequence for having so much willpower that I can resist almost anything. So that's a very basic but player character. I can also turn on the notes so I can describe some particularities of my character. And another option is to have the situation aspects box available. So if I'm under an aspect, and it's different from a consequence because let's not go into rules, but you may have situation aspects that are placed on your character or that your character wanders into. So I can have the box here to, whoops, to be able to add some of those. Um, Notes I use copiously to describe my character, their relationship with others, and so forth. That's a basic tour of the character sheet. I'm going to show you a couple of other items that are related to, well, I should one more word on the character sheet. Uh, this is for a player character, but and you the player character may not, the player may not care about all these boxes because they're decided by the GM. But trust me, GMs, this is really nice when you're making NPCs, because if you're making like no name, bit part, street hoodlums or cops, the beat cops that are not important story wise, and they will only have a few items. You don't have a large character sheet with all sorts of boxes that distract you and that you're not using. You can stick to just what you want. So, for example, you may have just one stress track for your opponents, and maybe a couple of aspects, and 2-3 skills, and that's enough. If you can create a character sheet for a hurricane, which is a hazard. It's not a person. But they have aspects, and they can cause damage. So they have hurricane skills like devastating winds and so forth. So and they can have stunts. So being able to create focused character sheets is very useful. Let me see if I can show you one real quick on an example of one of our modules where it has come.
5-minute warning.
Oh, 5. Okay, I thought it was 10 minutes. My apologies. Okay. Um, then maybe this is not the best use, because I wanted to show you one more thing that's useful for everybody. And it is creating little markers that you can use to track aspects created in play. As you know, one of the 4 actions in Fate is to create an advantage, and you may end up having with a lot of aspects that you track at the table. Very often, people use whoops, not the playing cards. People use sticky notes or index cards. You can do the same here. What I'm doing is, as GM, I can do that. I went to the collection tab, the second one from the right, and I hit on deck, add one, and I'm adding a deck. I'm going to call aspect trackers. I'm going to say that there's an infinite number of them in the deck. It doesn't matter how we draw, really. I will allow GM and players to pull them out. The discard pile does not matter. I want them to be face up. I'm going to choose a bag from my library of files here. I can leave it to get its default size from the graphics, but I'm going to give it one. Actually, no, I think it was 140 by 70. I think that looked good last time I tried it. And I'm going to add one card. There will be a single card in this deck, which is an aspect. And I will use the reverse file just because it looks nice on my screen. And it should be uploading slowly. Tell me you're uploading. There we go. Save changes, save changes. And I'm going back to my tab here, and I will say that I want to show it. And now I can drag one of those on the board. Okay, I made it a little small. Let's zoom in. And this is how tokens work in Roll20. Oh, I forgot to, sorry. The thing I forgot to do is indicate that it's not a drawing, it's a token. And this is going to be useful to me because I can then give it a name that will show in, there we go. It gets all the features that a token gets in Roll20. I can give it a name, on fire. It's our favorite aspect. Just like sticky notes, like post-it notes, I can use colors to represent different things. And now I can also use the token markers that are here under, and I'm going to use one of those markers to indicate how many free aspects I have on it. So I hover my cursor over the color I want to use, which is green right now, and I'm going to use the number 2. And there we go. Now the aspect on fire has 2 free invocations anybody can grab and add to a roll. So I have many more things I could talk about. I had a much longer list, but there's just a lot of features you can use on Roll20 and in the Fate character sheet in particular. I'm going to be on a Q&A or a live game that you can sign up for. And I'm also going to, we're going to drop the Zoom link here. So if there are no spots left at the time when you want to drop in, you can drop in anytime during the hour. But if there's no space, you can still listen on Zoom and ask questions. We have a minute for, does anybody have questions? I have not checked the chats, Sean.
No questions in chat, but thank you all for hanging out with us. I just put a link in chat for how to join the Roll20 meeting, and we'll have the Zoom link in there, like Sophie said. And once you're in there, Sophie can answer any specifics that you've got. So Sophie, thanks so much for doing this. We're going to wrap up the stream, and hopefully we'll see some of you in the Q&A in a few minutes. Bye all.
Thank you. Happy Saturday.